we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?
We better.
We got problems.
I don't believe this. I don't fucking believe. All right, well, welcome back to another edition of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. And Eric, there you go. I was going to ask.
I'm already drinking.
Our last episode we recorded at 9 o'clock in the morning. We felt it probably best not to have beers. That might send the wrong message. So here we are. It's an afternoon.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. It's an afternoon, and I'm going with. God, what is this? It's a dark ale. I'm not even sure who I made. I ordered it online from Groundbreaker Brewing. It's thick. It's a thick.
I've got to step up my game with you. Jesus Christ! Next, I'll be regressing and drinking Bud or something like that.
Well, next we might be like, here's my gin and tonic. It's number
Yes.
5. So
looks like I picked the wrong week to stop sniffing glue. Yeah.
Nice.
All
We'll be
right.
breaking in movie references left and right.
Yeah.
So that being said, speaking of movie references, we had the Giants version of the Titanic over the weekend. That ship sunk pretty quickly after kickoff. We talked about a lot of things that happened during the weekend. One of the things you brought up I thought was really interesting that we probably should have focused on just a tad more is how orchestrated you thought the Daniel Jones piece was. But there was the one big part about it that we probably didn't touch on is, I agree, I think it was orchestrated and everything else. Why did they wait so long into the bye week prior to the upcoming game to do it? And was yesterday a result of that? So just some thoughts on that whole orchestration and then what we saw on the field before we even talk about the specifics.
Yeah.
of the game.
Bitey Max made a really good point. I want to give him credit for that because he brought up the point that you just made, and it's kind of like, why didn't you mentally prepare the team before this? I think before we get into all this, we have to say it's over. This is
Oh yeah.
the one thing I will say is the last show we had, we were talking about, well, they've got 7 games to basically prove that they belong here still. And the good news is it didn't take 7. It didn't take 7 games. So I don't think they can rebound from this. Could they? Sure. I don't believe they will. It would take a minor miracle at this point. The way the players were talking afterwards in the locker room, and again, I don't shut up, but I don't have any sympathy for anybody connected with this team right now.
Right,
So
right.
part of me is like, players, shut up too. You were the guys missing tackles. You guys are the ones that aren't making the blocks. You are fumbling the ball. You're doing all these things. So part of me is like, the whole thing just stinks to high heaven. And I will say this is we've all been through this already a number of times in the last decade. We know what it looks like. We know what it smells like. We're old hands at this, unfortunately, Giants fans. We've seen this movie before, and it's happening again. And I will be shocked at this point if Daboll's back. I'm getting shocked if Shane's going to be back at this point. Less shocked, but I'm going to be shocked there too, to a certain degree, because this is just falling apart rapidly, even faster than I thought it was going to. So to answer your question, I wanted to put that in there first.
Yeah.
And then to answer your question, they mentally didn't prepare the team for the switch. Then during a bye, which they had extra time, and I think they did that to protect themselves from the press, and then they ended up shooting themselves in the foot. I think they confused their own team, and we saw the result on the playing field.
Yeah, it was really, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I've never seen anything so unbelievably obvious within 3 or 4 plays that you knew this was not going to be the Giants' day. The spark, which we talked about, that maybe DeVito brings with the crowd, it lasted as long as it took him to get to the huddle when fans were where they're going like, oh, there's Tommy, and then bam, he does what we kind of said he can't do because he's kind of known for holding the ball and getting sacked, although the offensive line failed horribly. It just there was no energy whatsoever with this team, and there was some very odd. I mean, I'm almost beginning to wonder: does Daboll just want to be fired? Does he want to just be like, you know what, I don't want to do this? Because some of the things that he called, the way oddities, like why are you calling a 4th and 1? Kind of, I don't say a reverse, but basically a jet sweep handoff to the smallest receiver that you have, and expecting him he's going to cut it up into the middle of the field because there's just no way he was going to make it out wide. I just don't understand. We don't do anything to build anything. It really did seem haphazardly thrown together. And the play on the field, the offense is one thing because we've already expected it even when our best quarterback averaged 14 points a game out there. You kind of expected we're not that good. Maybe DeVito does, maybe he doesn't. That's what we wanted to see. But god damn, the defense. I mean, talk about, they might as well have been the French in World War II. They should have just walked out there with white flags. They just are like, just whatever. 3rd and 11, go ahead, throw a screen pass. We'll miss 5 tackles. You'll get 25 yards.
I think Daboll's dead man walking because of what I talked about on our last podcast is that he's tied himself to Shane Bowen, and Shane Bowen's defense had to look better coming out of the bye, and it looked worse. So
right.
I think he's now picked multiple coaches in a row that are going to also sink him. So, and again, we talked about this on the last podcast. The defense is what interested me the most, other than DeVito too. But
sure,
and it laid a major egg. And I think it's clear that Shane Bowen's not the answer. And I don't think how does Daboll survive both the record being this bad and picking his subordinates so poorly? So what are you hanging your hat on at this point? So again, the desire to have a continuity here has now been replaced by this sheer incompetence. And I agree with you. I think Daboll looks disinterested and going through the motions to me at this point. I mean, his press interactions they're so it seems like he's just spewing talking points at this point. We play hard. This is a tribute or a reference for San Fran out there, Giants fan. I guess we're not supposed to mention some members of the site, or that triggers people. So I apologize if that's triggering somebody. But San Fran, I'm going to mention him because he can't stand the fact that Daboll and other coaches before him have said, "Well, we had a great week of practice." Well, I don't want to hear that anymore. I don't want to hear it.
Oh my god.
Who cares? I want to, you know what? I want a great game. I want, boy, we played a great game. Not we had a great week of practice. So, and then he sits up there and he says, well, today he came out and he said, well, I thought we played hard. No, you didn't play hard. Everyone can see that. Even your own players said that.
Well, that's the part I have a problem with.
Or said that. I don't think we're playing hard.
How as you the coach can you say that when your own players on the team said, I don't think everybody's playing hard? I'm like, these are not the droids you're looking for. Isn't going to work on us. We watched the game. I'm like, it's embarrassing to the point that he makes those comments. But what was really bad, and I know I posted it on the site, bigblueinteractive.com.
Yeah.
Earlier, I went back and watched a couple of clips from Hard Knocks. And there's the one very specifically, and I know a lot of people focused on thinking I was talking about the interview after the game with Neighbors, which I was kind of, but I wanted to really focus on the Hard Knocks piece. Daboll sat down with Neighbors and said, how do you handle losing? How would you handle losing? If you weren't winning right away, how do you handle that? Right. And Neighbors' comments were, I hate losing more than I love winning. And then Daboll said, I want people who don't want to lose and whatever. He said, how do you handle not being involved early, not getting the ball early, not early in a game or early in the season? How would you handle that? And he talked about how it would really bother him if he was practicing and Daboll said, I want that. I want a guy who wants the ball, but it needs to be tempered. You need to, you need to be able to have it under control. What I thought was funny is how prophetic Was
Yeah.
those questions, or were those
Yeah.
questions, Jesus, John, were those questions when you had the very issue pop up after the game and neighbors' comments were the exact opposite of what you just said about you need to temper it. He basically threw you under the bus. I don't know why I'm not getting the ball. Talk to the coach. It's not a quarterback problem because it's the same problem we had when Daniel was here. That was a huge shot at the coaching staff. That was a huge shot overall of the team. And by the way, neighbors, catch the goddamn ball. Like, you drop too many passes as it is for you to be running your mouth constantly. I get a little annoyed. I don't want to ship a guy out of town or anything like that per se yet, but you can see it coming. And he who shall not be named, only because somebody got really upset about naming him. I sometimes go against some of the things that he has said in the past, but one of the things he talked about is, get a dog receiver for a quarterback who can't throw. We're seeing the effects of what happens when you do that, though. When you get a guy and you build him up, I get a weird feeling, by the way, and you can tell me I'm totally off base if you want, and that's fine. Do you remember last year during Hard Knocks, the Jets, where
Oh, I didn't see it. I
Oh,
didn't see
okay.
it.
So Salo was basically salivating over Rodgers when they got him, and it was all Rodgers, 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 and there was always he was talking to Rodgers on the sidelines during preseason games, and then of course Rodgers gets hurt right away, and the Jets season goes to shit. I get that weird feeling with neighbors. They built him up. They're talking. He's the dog. He's this. He's that. But the problem is, if you aren't getting him the ball, that dog is gonna be nippy. They're gonna be petulant. And that's kind of what we're starting to get, is a little bit of like, I don't want to lose. This isn't me. This is on the coaching staff. And that's not a good look. And it's bad when you tied yourself to him so much so. And it was such a big deal because you don't normally see that, right? Even the player doesn't normally see what those guys were talking about when he wasn't there. But in Hard Knocks, that was open for all of us to see, of just how much they were salivating over having neighbors.
Yeah, this is gonna sound strange given the fact that we're on a football site and we're doing a football podcast, but I can't I don't I don't feel comfortable anymore getting into the weeds with this stuff because I can't judge the players anymore given what's happened with this team at this point because I think they've lost interest in they're not playing at 100% even if they wanted to because how do you stay motivated when your team is 2-9 and this much crap is going on at this point? So to me,
Right.
it's like, how the hell do you evaluate neighbors? How the hell do you evaluate anything with this team right now? Because obviously it's falling apart. I've seen this before, and players that were on teams that are going to go through a transition, those players don't play for whatever reason, they don't play up to their capabilities. Some of it may be because the schemes are wrong. Some of it maybe they're subconsciously or consciously they're checking out.
Right.
So how do you evaluate neighbors right now, given the situation? How do you evaluate any defensive player right now? So like somebody misses a tackle, would he miss that tackle if he has another coach that he knows that put the fear of God in him? I don't know. So I'm not going to I feel really bad for Cy. Cy's got to review this game
Yes.
and write a review on this about players who might be playing better in a different situation, i.e., again, now I do want to talk about this real quick. You and I talked about this in the last show. It was a disastrous PR period for the Giants because
Yes.
not only are they losing, but Saquon's playing well, Xavier McKinney's
Oh my.
playing well. People are bringing up Leonard Williams now, Julian Love.
Yep.
The national media is doing the same damn thing. Again, I get the emotional. I get why people are their emotions are getting the best of them right now. But again, you have to be honest with yourself and honest where the team was. Bringing back some of these people at the contracts that they were looking for did not make sense. And if these players were still back on the Giants maybe only have 2 more wins. So we're not talking
If
about
that. Yeah.
all these players were on the Giants when they were still losing. So I understand why people are mad because not only the Giants are awful, but these other players are on teams that are doing really well, and it galls them. So just that's what I'm talking about. If some of these players were, I mean, so for instance, so if if Neighbors is on another team on the Kansas City Chiefs, don't you think he'd be having a different season and he'd
Oh,
have a
sure.
lot more dog in him? That's what I'm talking about. I can't get too into this. What I'm more interested in moving forward now is who's going to be commandeering the ship. Is there going to be a new GM? Is there going to be a new coach? Who are we going to pick? Are they going to finally change the culture in this? Can we trust John Mara to pick the right person? Those are the big things that are interesting me at this point. The last 6 games, I hate to say it, we're just waiting for the offseason right now. And the big question is I'm starting to see more and more people who are convinced that Daboll's going to get fired after Thanksgiving. I would previously say there's no way that's going to happen, but now I'm not so sure, because if this gets any worse than it did Sunday, I don't know if he's safe at this point.
I don't know how. Well, so you credit to you. A few weeks back, when more than a few weeks back, when Mara supposedly had said, "I
Yeah.
don't really want to make change." That was the thing that had come out. He doesn't really want to make changes. We need to keep some consistency. These guys, and the rumor was they're safe.
More than that, yeah, they are
Yeah,
safe.
they
And I said no.
and you
Well,
said, "We'll see what that."
I
John Mara
said
said
we'll
that
see what we'll
before.
be in December. We're not even in December yet. Yeah.
But what he said then and what the Giants were then is vastly different than where we are today. And the funny thing is, we don't really know still yet what was the impetus to move Jones, because ultimately you should have done it weeks ago, but you didn't. You kept saying he's the best. So ultimately it has to be you didn't want him to get hurt. At this point, someone said we can't let him get hurt. It's all about money. That seems the obvious answer. But it looks very bad to your locker room. You're not coming out and saying that, but that's pretty obvious of why you did it. But you took the one shield that you had. The one thing, as I said more than once, what's the common denominator over 3 coaches and 2 general managers? Daniel Jones. You took him out of the equation, though.
Right.
And then you laid a freaking egg. So
Right.
now all the look, all the target, all the
Right.
focus is on the next most obvious thing. Now, John Mara is going to be constant, but you're not going to do anything about him. It doesn't matter. So the next one is Daboll. If I'm Shane, I'm not how I would operate, but I got to assume this is how he's operating. He's behind the scenes going, we need to get a new quarterback. We're probably going to need to get a coach that's going to pick their guy. We want a coach that's going to pick their guy. If he's doing anything to save his job, if he's going in there going, it's the 2 of us are together. It's either both of us or neither of us. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening at all. Then self-preservation says that's not happening. Daboll's in really big trouble. And it looked really bad today when you come in, you don't acknowledge the obvious. I mean, you literally took the most obvious thing and you just said, "No, we watched the film." I'm like, what the hell? We watched, don't bother. We're not we're fans, we're not stupid.
Right.
I watched a little bit towards the end on the red zone. I watched Bryce Young make plays against the Kansas City Chiefs, who may have gone into a game kind of thinking they had an easy game to play, and they didn't. But Bryce Young made plays, and he's throwing to Adam Thielen, who's on the last legs of his career, a bunch of no-name receivers that they're hoping will become somebody, behind an offensive line that is not good, and they gave the Chiefs all they could handle because they fought, they played, they tried. We went out at home, and we managed to put up 7 points against one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. 7. And that was in the second half. That was after we were already down like 30-0. So congrats. You managed to make a bad team look even worse.
Yeah.
Daboll cannot come back.
So we talked about this on Saturday. We said by removing Jones, which was the correct move. Should they have done it earlier? Yes. Should they have not even re-signed him? Yes. But it was the correct move to remove him. But we talked about once you remove him, you remove the shield. So the shield was gone. People can't vent at Daniel when Daniel's not here. So who's the next obvious person they're going to vent on? It's Daboll. But Daboll's is making his life miserable by the way the team's performing. And what you just said is what's been and you said it more succinctly than I've been saying it for weeks now. I've been trying to say it the way that you said it, but you just said it better. the team isn't playing hard. Competently. In other words, there are bad teams out there that are putting together good performances, like Carolina, like other teams. So we're not even seeing a competent performance every other week or every 3 weeks. We're not seeing, we're lost 6 games in a row now, and they're getting worse. We're not even seeing them markedly show any signs of life here. So in the NFL, all these teams are grouped together, and we're not even being competitive against bad teams like Carolina was, and Tampa
Right.
was a losing team coming into this game, and they blew us out at home. We haven't won a game at home. And we're probably going to go winless in the division. There's no
Yep.
signs of life. How do you come back from that? That's why Daboll's gone, in my opinion. And to be honest with you, Shane should probably be gone too. And you should, if the Giants are going to have the first, second, or third pick in the draft, I would just start fresh. I would just bring in the new quarterback, new GM, new coach all together, make sure everybody's on the same page, and then for once, just make sure everyone's on the same page and then go from there. I would say nobody on this roster safe. Nobody. No, not any single player is on
Exactly.
safe, because we're years away from being competitive now. This is the thing that sucks. When you restart and you're going to start with a new quarterback, the Giants are not going to be good next year. And the Giants, and be honest with you, I don't want them to be good next year. And people are going to say, what the hell are you talking about? We've gone through a series of coaches who have done great in their first year. We felt great. And then they've imploded in their second year. So I'm even if we get a new head coach next year and say we win 9 games, I'm going to still be walking on eggshells. Because I'm going to be going, what the hell's going to happen in the year after this? Because if we follow, so in a way, I almost kind of want them to have a 4, 5, 6 win year next year and start building. Like you talked about before, how
Sure.
Parcells started. He's 3-12-1, and then he went to 9-7, and then we went 10-6, and then we went to the Super Bowl. So part of me is superstitious now. If we have a coach of the year candidate next year, it's only going to last 1 year.
Well,
So
we've run the gamut of that though, right? We had McAdoo, who had a way over the top success first season, where we spent a lot of money on defensive free agents.
Right.
We brought in and we won a bunch of games, and then we shit the bed in the playoffs, and we
Right.
thought, oh, okay, we're coming, but we still had an older quarterback.
Right.
Then he fell off the table. Shermer and Judge, neither one of them really. Our expectations were much lower. Judge's first year wasn't that great. We almost made the playoffs because the division was so horrible that 6-10 almost got in.
Yeah, but people felt like he was all right again.
I think we wanted to believe the Patriot thing. I know I did. I felt like because I didn't know Joe Judge from anybody when he first came on.
Right.
You even said it the last one, right?
Who's
But I think you're right.
Judge?
But you're right though, right? Like you're not wrong with what you said. What I think might be different though, I have no. It's too early for me to even think what we might be next year, because who the hell knows? But if you bring in, before we get deep into the woods there, if you bring in a Belichick, you bring in a Vrabel, you bring in somebody else who's had success as a head coach, then the expectation and whatever might be different, because these guys have done it before. In the past, though, we've brought in guys. Shermer kind of was a temporary coach, but he didn't have a head coaching background to prove it. McAdoo didn't. Judge didn't. So if we bring in a proven coach and they have some early success, that might be a little different. Everybody else, though, I'm totally with you. It's like, and I looked back on the Daboll piece, and truly, I'm calling myself out in this particular scenario, and you've done this to me, where I've gone, well, we could have done this. We were so close on that. And you're like, yeah, but it could have been the other way too. So I went back and I looked at a bunch of stuff. And if you go back really, and this is what bugs me. This is what bugs me about Daboll. We barely beat the Titans in Tennessee, and they missed a field goal, by the way. They missed the field goal, which is what allowed us to win the game. We let them come right back down the field. We should have probably lost that game. Carolina, 2 early turnovers right in the first quarter by the Panthers leads to 14 points for us. We barely win that game, though. So that's 2 games right there. The Ravens, they shit the bed at the end of the game. They they allowed us to take that game back. If they go down and score instead of having to kick a field goal later, they had a couple penalties that pulled some. I think they had a touchdown scored. They got called back. That doesn't happen, we lose. Jacksonville, they fumbled the ball out of the end zone, which allowed us to get the ball back. They would have scored.
Right.
They were going in. He fumbles it. So if you look at that, Daboll's whole persona as a Giants head coach is off from the first 8 games where we had a number of lucky scenarios and a lot of turnovers, as you pointed out. You can't count on that. A lot of turnovers that we were able to get. But then the second half of the season, it started to go. And from that point on, minus the playoff game, that point on, a lot of our games and a lot of where this team has been hasn't changed. 3-5-1. Last year we were 6-11, and a couple of those wins were shitty back half of the season wins. And now we've won 2. This team under Daboll has not been good, but his arrogance after that first year, where you remember when he didn't want to, our starters weren't going to play. I'm like, what do you mean they're not going to play? They're not even good enough.
Yeah.
You had one good drive against Carolina, and all of a sudden you thought we were going to waltz into the first game with Dallas. We're good to go.
Yeah. I'm not going to relitigate the first season too much because that was a bad Giants team, and a lot of NFL games are won with luck and close things. I think they were winning a lot of games that they could have lost. That's not a controversial statement, but they won them.
Sure.
And it felt great, and it felt like we had the right coach. And then we had a lot of injuries in the second half of that first year, and they kind of righted the ship with the loss against Minnesota in the regular season, and then the playoff game was obviously the miracle. Everyone loves that playoff game. That playoff game did more damage to this franchise than any win probably in franchise history. But I don't want to relitigate that.
No, I get it.
He's clearly lost his mojo, though. It's 2 years in a row. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. We're not even getting an occasional game right now that gives us hope. It's just beat down, and it's getting worse. And I don't see how they recover with this. In order for him to keep his job, they would have to go on some sort of miracle turnaround here in the last 6 games, and I just don't see it. So the question now to me is, rather than talking about the past, we should talk about what are we going to do moving forward. To me, and we've got 6 weeks to talk about this, but that to me, that's the $1 million question. And as I said from 2 months ago, and I've been repeating over and over again, I still can't get out of the back of my head that if this implodes and John Mara is like, what the hell do I have to do to pick the right coach, that it's got to be lurking in the back of his mind that the ultimate game changer here is Belichick for him.
It has to.
So, I mean, again, the age thing is a problem, and a lot of Giants fans are getting tired of the Patriots way and all that, and I understand that, and I'm not even convinced he's the right guy. But if you're sitting in if you're John Mara and you feel cursed at picking coaches, and are you willing right now, if you're him, to roll the dice on another unknown offensive coordinator, or maybe a defensive coordinator, somebody who's never been a head coach at at the NFL level right now? I don't think he's willing to do that. I'm not even sure he's willing to get Vrabel, because I want to say this too. I'm a big fan of Vrabel based on what I've seen him do in Tennessee, but a lot of us are really overrating him too. It's not like Vrabel's been this, I went out to Tennessee, when was that? 6 months ago or so. And I talked some football with some fans out there, and they were glad Vrabel was gone. And I was surprised. So, of course, fans always
people would have said that about Tom Coughlin.
Yeah, exactly. Too. So, I mean, so you always run into that anyways. But I'm just saying. So, it's not like Vrabel is like, he's more of a proven commodity, but he's not like. So again, I don't want to diss him too much. But if I'm trying to put myself in Mara's head right now, I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't pick coaches. So, but there's a Hall of Fame coach sitting out there who may want to coach here, and he has a connection to the past that will at least make older fans think, about the glory days. And
Right.
I can't get that out of my head right now. Now, what is he the right guy? I don't know, but I can't get past that. My bigger question right now is does Belichick want to get involved in this mess? Does he want
Well,
to get here? And if Belichick comes there, I don't think he's going to agree to coach under Shane. I don't think he's going to
yeah,
want to do
I would agree with
that.
that. But
So,
before we talk a little bit more about the coach, I want to ask you one question that
yeah.
I've been thinking about. Would you agree with this statement? The biggest flaw in this team, this organization, is their own self-evaluation. They have been very
Oh
poor.
God, yeah.
They've been
For
very poor
years.
at
For
evaluating.
years.
And I think 22 now goes back to prove that point. And that's where I was kind of going with the piece about Daboll being, I thought he was a little arrogant after that, kind of feeling like you had arrived. Self-evaluation would have said, some fans don't like this. This is where you and I get some people kind of mad at us. I still would have gotten rid of Barkley in the middle of the 22 season while we were winning because you're not keeping him long term. It doesn't make sense. You still didn't really have your quarterback, regardless of what
Colossal
ultimately
mistake. It
happened.
was a
Yeah.
colossal mistake.
And then we doubled down on it by franchising him and signing Jones. So, and then you went through another year with him knowing he was going to go. And you let him go, which was going to make you look bad, but you still had a quarterback that was coming off a bad injury year. You already gave him a big contract, but you had the parachute coming up to get out of it, and then you don't go get anybody. Then you just think, well, I'll just throw some other people out there and that'll make everything better. And, we bought into it a little bit too, thinking at the very least, his play shouldn't regress. And dear God, it did.
Yeah.
So they misevaluate constantly. The piece with Wink, I still wonder. I'm not a Wink Martindale fan, so everybody knows that. I'm glad he's gone. I thought he was kind of he's a bit of a blowhard, and I didn't think much of him as far as a coach. But I want to know what that deal was behind the scenes between him and Daboll. What was it there? Because it's carried over. Did all you do
Be
and
interesting to know, wouldn't it? Yeah.
yeah, and that Hard Knocks thing, and we talked about it. That scene where they're talking, he and Shane are talking about, oh, look at all this, which was stupid. It's bullshit. It's a reality thing. It's done for the cameras. But
But he
there
knocked
was,
the run, but he knocked Wink's run defense. He did not.
and that was the part that I kept thinking, wait a minute, all this other shit, Shane already knows. He's already agreed. You're not hiring a coach unless Shane said that's okay. If Shane goes, you're not doing that. No head coach is hiring anybody without telling their general manager who you're getting. So you don't just walk in and then start going, here's all the stats of the guy I already hired. No, you
Yeah.
knew that. That was a shot at Wink. And guess what? Now you look stupid.
Yeah.
Now you look petty, and your run defense is even worse than it was last year.
Well. Let's just again because there've been some fans that have been saying, "Why did we get rid of Wink?" Wink wasn't good either.
Right.
All Wink,
Oh, I
Wink in
agree.
there's 2 years that he was here. His run defense was at the bottom of the league too, and he got he went out on a high note because in the second half of his second year here, they started getting turnovers like crazy. And so, but turnovers come and go. They're not, people are saying, well, it's a product of the system. No, it's not. They come and go. I remember the 1997 Giants got turnovers like crazy. And then the following year they didn't. And then
Right.
look what
Right.
happened.
Yep.
So turnovers come and go. That's just the way. So if you have a defense that counts on turnovers, to me, you don't have a consistent defense because you cannot count on turnovers happening. I will say this. I get a strong impression that the defensive players on this team felt connected to Wink. They don't feel connected to Shane. And I think some of that's I specifically Bobby Okereke played way better under Wink than he's playing under this coach.
Correct.
Tay Banks played way better as a rookie under Wink, and Wink wanted him, and it was a difference. And that style of defense fit him more. So I think there's probably people, a lot of defensive players who fairly or unfairly want Wink back because they felt they liked his personality, they liked his style of defense. They were brought in while he was here. And I don't know this. I haven't been told this. I just get that vibe that there is not a connection there. So, which also bugs me to a certain degree because I don't, again, players do your job. I don't, whoever your
Right.
employer is, you're supposed to do your job and do what they tell you to do. And they're not getting that. So again, they got to bring in somebody here. I mean, No one's going to question Bill Belichick. That's the thing. If Bill Belichick comes into that locker room, people are going to listen to him, and if you're not, he's going to get rid of you.
Well, some of them are going to be gone anyway. Just to
Yeah,
send
they're
a
going to be.
message.
I mean, in a way, and again, other people on the website, not to be named, have talked about this before too. Nobody should be safe. Everybody should be tradable.
Agreed.
Everybody should, because and in a way that's right, because first of all, you got to get the stink of losing off of you. They did
Right.
that with Daniel. They did that with Saquon and then these other players. But then you also have to get the stink of thinking that you have a say in this. No, not really. Again, you want the players to feel like they have they can buy into the system. But again, at the end of the day, they have to do. It's almost like the army. You have to do what you're told.
Sure.
So, and if you don't accept that, then I'm sorry, you're out of here. So we even saw that with the Patriots, where they would sign a player, like the defensive tackle, was it Hainsworth, and or a wide receiver they'd bring in, and they'd last only a few games because they would be like, all right, you're not going with the Patriots way. You're not listening to Bill. We want.
Yeah.
They'd bring people in and they would immediately get rid of them because they won't buy into the program. We've got to get rid of players that won't buy into the program, because right now I don't worry about the talent right now. I worry about the chemistry in this. I want players smart, tough, and dependable. I don't want to hear that shit anymore.
Yeah, to get rid of.
But you want players who you can trust to do the right thing, and they don't have that right now. I just don't. I mean, even you got to wonder, even all the losing on Dexter. I know you keep talking about trading Dexter.
I do.
And on the surface, I don't want to do that at all. But again, if you're starting from scratch, when is Dexter? How old is Dexter going to be when they finally turn this around? So should they start thinking about listening for offers to everyone? Anyone.
Sure, but if you're going to rebuild, which one of the big knocks that a lot of people say is we've never truly rebuilt.
No, we haven't.
You've tried to retool. You tried to get a different coach. We kept the same quarterback. We kept a bunch of other players. I mean, Darius Slayton is still on the team, and he had absolutely no impact at all yesterday in the game at all. He did absolutely nothing. Dexter Lawrence is a guy that I like. I think he's a bit overrated on the site overall. Do I think he's a really good player? Yes. He can't change, and this is what I argued with someone. And I knew they were going to throw out Aaron Donald's name. He is not Aaron Donald. I talked about this the other day. They play completely different games. Dexter Lawrence is a big dude, and they can get worn down very easy. And when you start like taking on double and triple teams because you don't have anybody else next to you that's needing attention, that's going to start to wear on you. That's when you're really going to start to pick up some injuries. Like you said, if we don't win for another 2 to 3 years, but you kept Lawrence, he's got this huge contract, and he's starting to wear down. This isn't Michael Strahan, by the way, towards the end of his career. And if you don't remember, go back and look when he was drafted. He was drafted at 264 pounds. Right. At one point in his career, he's about 295, 300 playing left defensive end. Then we went to more of a quicker, because he started in a 3-4. We went to a 4-3 setup, and he needed to be quicker. He dropped down. He was probably 255, 260 at the end of his career. Dexter Lawrence is going to be a 340-pound defensive tackle throughout his career. And once he's not, he's going to lose any effectiveness that he has. He is brute strength in the middle, and that's not somebody who can just turn a game by himself. Where are the outside guys? You don't even hear about him. There's nobody else on the line. I don't think we have a setup that really benefits what he can do. So, yes, I think you should trade him. I'm not saying just get rid of him. But if I'm going to rebuild, I need multiple first-round picks.
Yeah, I hold him in more higher esteem than you do. I think he's a better player than that. But the point remains, I don't think anybody's safe. And a lot of this depends on – this could turn around quickly in this sense. If you get a competent defensive coordinator here. And we have a long history. As much as we keep talking, we have a bad history of head coaches – picking head coaches. We have a longer history now going back through the Coughlin years of picking bad defensive coordinators. Remember Perry Fewell?
Rod Rust.
Yes. We have had bad luck with defense, or that you make
Was
your
it
own
Tim
luck.
Lewis? Did we have
Tim Lewis?
There's
another.
God.
So we just have had a bad string of defensive coordinators, and if you get somebody who knows what they're doing, they could. I do want to go back and say one thing that you said that made me the word that you used that I thought was appropriate, arrogance. You talked about Daboll having arrogance. I think arrogance is what the organization has when you talk about their inability to self-scout,
Yeah.
self-analyze. There's an arrogance to this organization that they think they know better. And you want confidence, but confidence is born from demonstrated ability.
Right.
And they haven't demonstrated that ability in 13 years now. So I don't know where this arrogance is coming from with the organization. That they just feel like they know better still, and they don't. So
They
if I
confuse
was in their
historical
shoes, I would be
results.
like looking everywhere for
Yeah.
answers right now. But they seem to think that they know better than everybody else.
They confuse the history, and I think it plays into the whole, John Mayer's constantly wheeling out. We're celebrating something almost every other,
We have to.
yeah, you got nothing on the field. But it's always embarrassing though. They're like, oh, we're gonna celebrate Eli at halftime and you're getting blown out. Oh, we're gonna, Ring of Honor. Oh, we're
It's
getting
sad.
blown out.
It's
It's
so
like,
sad.
Jesus, don't do it anymore. Like, but that's where it kind of feels like, right? Like it's almost like you think 2007 was just a couple of years ago, or 2011. And by the way, 2011, I hate to keep reminding people, but we were 9-7 when we made when we made the playoffs. It was at the end of the year. It wasn't a great year, but it was a great run. One thing about you brought up Mike Vrabel a minute ago about I'm not completely sure about Mike Vrabel. The fans there were happy that he was going. The one thing that I think people forget, or they put too much emphasis on, we only do this if we're winning the Super Bowl. That's not how the league in general works. Consistency is huge. I would much rather be the Pittsburgh Steelers and know that I'm almost every year we're going to have a winning record and we're probably going to be in the playoffs. And if things work right, we might have a shot at the Super Bowl. Or the Baltimore Ravens, who continually make the playoffs, whether it's Joe Flacco, whether it's Lamar Jackson, whether they had to go through 3 quarterbacks and they still made the playoffs when Jackson was hurt. Those teams win consistently and get to the play. Even Dallas, up until recently, consistently made. Yes, they shit the bed, and it's embarrassing because they've been touted so much. But we're at the bottom. We can't point the finger at anybody. We win 9 games, and all of a sudden we walk into the next season like we're the Super Bowl champs. We're going to rest people. We're ready to go, and we get blown out 40-0 at home in the first game. It's so bad right now, even as so many fans. We set our sights on 2 different things. One, little tiny things all of a sudden look like they're great. Oh, we won a game. Great. We're Super Bowl contenders now. No. Or you attach yourself to certain players like Barkley. Everybody's now, oh, Barkley. We didn't win anything with Barkley here. I'm not saying he's not a good player. What I'm saying is you could bring him back, not sign some of the other free agents that we got, and we're probably in the same boat we are right now, or maybe a win more, but still scoring the same kind of points, still looking bad. But we got a superstar that everybody goes, geez, if he was on a good team, he'd be great. That's where you're at.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head with one thing that bothers me is that there is and maybe it's a reflection of age, I don't know. There's people who maybe didn't go through a lot of the winning pine for players rather than teams. And it bothers me when people go, I miss Odell, I miss Saquon. And I'm like, why? I mean, to me, I'm not rooting for players per se. I mean, there are players that to me have special significance. Phil Simms is one of my favorite players of all time.
Yep.
Lawrence Taylor, for all his
LT.
warts, one of my favorite players of all time. But why are they also my favorite players? Because they won Super Bowls. And so when somebody says, geez, why don't we resign Landon Collins? Why don't we resign Odell Beckham? Why don't we bring this guy back? Why do we let Wink go? And I'm like, why? I mean, I think like they're almost, it's not, it wasn't as bad, so they won it, but it was still bad. So when BBI first started, it wasn't even called Big Blue Interactive. It was called Big Blue Homepage. It shows you how old the site is because it was such a stupid name. But before there was a forum, there was a letters to the editor, and one of the first big fights on that site was between me and a guy by the name of Martin. And Martin used to argue what you just said. It would be better to have a team that didn't necessarily compete for, didn't win Super Bowls, but every year they were in contention and they were in the playoffs, and there was consistency there, and you felt good about your team every single year because you knew every year you were going to have a winning year and there was something to be excited about. And back then, I used to argue I'd rather win a Super Bowl once a decade and not be so good, and for the rest of the years, because to me the ring was more important. Now, that being said, this spell that we're going through right now has been so bad. I understand where Martin and you are coming from right now, because it's not. I was talking at a time when the Giants, when they lost, they were at least in games. I've talked about this before.
Sure.
1995, the Giants were 5-11, but they were in almost every single loss that they lost. They could have won in the fourth quarter. They were in every game, and they were actually up in most of those games in the fourth quarter. So you felt the team was, you felt bad and you were disappointed in that year, but you knew the team was fighting. But when you lose 30-7 to the Buccaneers at home, and you lose to the Panthers, and it's not getting better, you don't see any growth. Now I understand where Martin was coming from all those years ago. So Martin, if you're still out there, I don't know if you are. I understand where you're coming from now, because right now, I'm not saying I agree. I'd still would take the Super Bowl, but I don't want to go. I don't want to be fourth place in the other 9 years in a decade either. So that's
and it's
where we're at.
And it's a different environment today than what you're even talking about, because free agency wasn't free agency as it is today. Your ability to change is so much easier now. What I'm saying too about it, I want consistency in that. I don't want such highs and lows.
Yes.
And right now we've had a high, and that was 2011. I guess you could throw 16, but that ended so badly so I'd say 2011. And then, but it's been low. But the problem is we can't seem to see when the lowest point is. We keep finding new ways to go, oh, wow. Yeah. You know what? This is worse than it was last year.
Yeah. So
you're saying about things can always get worse. Unfortunately, yours is being proven on a weekly basis.
Yeah. And I don't want to be right about that. I want somebody to say, Eric, you got that wrong. And I'm wrong about a lot of things, but I wish I was wrong about that. So we should probably keep this tighter, but I just want, again, I think there's going to be a lot to think about moving forward in terms of the coaches. One other thing that popped in my mind too with Belichick is we talked about starting all over and getting rid of players and do that. His age factors into that. How long, if you hire Belichick, how long does he coach here? Does he have 5 years left in coaching? Because if he doesn't, then he may not be the right choice. So I'm not really sure what they're going to do here, but
that's
not working. Whatever they have right now, I'm pretty convinced. I think you are too, and I think most people. I think Daboll's gone. The question is Schoen gone? Should they go together because Schoen hired Daboll and they've been together on all these decisions? I agree with you. I think Shane's going to throw Daboll under the bus here.
I think he's going to have to. I mean,
he's going to have to. So
I think without a doubt. Well, so let's we'll keep it tight, but let's talk about it real quick. Just some of the main guys. Bill Belichick, in my opinion, I wrote it earlier. If I'm John Mara, not me personally saying this is what I would do, but if I think John Mara is going to do certain things, this is what he would do. You're going to offer Belichick whatever pretty much he wants to have. That's what you're going to need to do to bring him in. If you want him,
he's going to have to do that. You're right.
Which means Shane's not going to be there.
Right.
He's not going to want Schoen because, first off, Shane's not his guy. Shane's already been part of a losing organization. He's got other people. Scott Pioli. He could probably find Nick Cesario, maybe get him over. There's a couple other guys that he's dealt with. Dear God, don't let it be Lombardi. I think he would offer him almost what. But one thing I would do, though, if it were me, is there's a caveat. I need to know right now, you're going to bring a staff in. One of those staff members, you got to feel really good about that they would be your successor.
I thought about that, yeah.
Because you can't, I mean, you're talking what, 3 years maybe? You're gonna have a 76-year-old in 3 years, a 76-year-old head coach. That's
I just don't
risky.
know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how much gas does Belichick have in his tank?
He clearly wants to come back. That seems pretty obvious that he wants to coach somebody. Now, does he want this shit show of building it
He
back
might
up?
not. He might not. He might say, "I don't want a part of this." I don't know.
But what if other teams are saying, like you're saying, do we really want a 70 some odd year
That
old
works
head
for us.
coach?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And there might be a bidding war for him in the division too. I mean, I think the Eagles are out of it right now, but Dallas is. Um, Dallas,
Here's a name to think of, by the way, for Dallas.
yeah.
Don't be shocked if they don't get a Belichick and Jason Witten ends up being the next head coach of the Dallas
Oh
Cowboys.
God! Oh, please do that.
I'm
So
telling you, keep if it happens, I said it first.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
So
Dion. Dion apparently is staying at Colorado. So
oh, is that? Yeah, I
that's what
saw
they
that.
keep hinting at. But who knows, right? Wherever his son goes, he could be in play somewhere else. So then you got Vrabel. Vrabel has connections to Cowan, who's already with us, and I think there's that possibility of do we kind of keep that together? I don't want anybody. If you get rid of Daboll, I really don't want Shane, because you know what? As much as before, I was more Shane than Daboll. Some of the shit that he's done recently, and I look back on it and some of the things he said, and I watched again Hard Knocks, where he's retelling to Chris Mara what his conversation was with Daniel. And looking at it now, 11 weeks into the NFL season, or 11 games into the Giants season, it's almost like he was giving a book report on what he did with Daniel for Chris to bring back to John. It was, and over he kept saying how, I let him know that what doesn't mean even if we draft somebody that we're replacing you, that we still have. Why would you have to say that? You've been going out of your way to talk about how you don't have a quarterback. You need to be able to get one. You got to keep an eye on a guy. If we could trade up and get this guy, we want him. And now all of a sudden, you're giving a report to Chris Mara that says, I talked to Daniel and this is what I said.
Yeah.
I just feel like Shane and Daboll are too much of the same. You're two sides of the same coin.
That's what I think too. And I think the whole thing just something's really weird. So
Yes.
they re-signed the whole Barkley. I don't want to, again, we've talked about this over and over again, and people, we want to keep this tight, and people are going to say, you guys have talked about this before, but the whole thing, that how they handled the 2023 signings, both Barkley and Jones, was weird. And they felt like a panic. And then they immediately regret doing both. And then through Hard Knocks, which we kind of knew anyways, they basically threw Daniel under the bus because it made it obvious to everybody, even before Hard Knocks, but including Hard Knocks, that they were looking for a new quarterback. So
Right.
So there's no way Daniel Jones watches that and says, I have a future here. He never, and it's why you said, and many of us said, Jones is gone at the end of the year, because they basically all but told us he's gone at the end of the year. So again, this feels like a throwaway season. And I don't know why Daboll and Shane tied themselves to this. They have no one to blame but themselves.
Sure.
They really don't. They someone was going to say out there, Mara put a gun to their heads, but maybe I don't know.
But the other part was the doubling down, right? When
quadrupling down.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost go like every week, and when what's really now starting to sound like you sound like an idiot is when you go, he's our best quarterback. He's our best, gives us our best chance to win. And then all of a sudden you go, we're done. He's third string. Tommy's coming in, and now we're not even going to play him at all. But why did you keep telling week after? All you had to say was, we're just sticking with Daniel right at the moment. You didn't even have to say he was your best chance to win, but you did. You said it constantly. And then he wasn't.
I would have put pressure
weird
on him, but I'm old school, and I'm more like, because I grew up under Parcells, I would have basically, because you want to know if a player can thrive under pressure or not, and I would have said he has to play better. He's not playing well. He has to play better, and if he doesn't, we're going to have to make a change. And that's what they ended up doing anyways, and that would have given the message to the team, and that would tell the team too, you're playing for your job every week. Nothing's handed to you. And unfortunately, Jones had a 6-year scholarship here. And then when they finally yanked it. That's the other thing that it was Bitey Max again, I think. Yeah, it was Bitey Max again who said, why are the players surprised by this? Jones sucks. Are they that oblivious that they can't look at a team that's scoring 14, 15 points a game and say the quarterback's not the problem? So I just, and there are other issues, but the quarterback, let's be honest, the quarterback was the big problem here. And we don't have a quarterback, and but again, some people are still going to say, and we talked about this on Saturday, people are saying, well, Jones still may be the best quarterback on this team. That's like saying you're the best awful thing out there. I don't care. You said it last week or on Saturday. You said, what's the difference if they lose 18-30? I think you almost got the game score.
I might have got it. That was pretty close.
Didn't you get that pretty close?
It was pretty close. It was pretty close.
I think you said 30 to. Did you say?
I might have said 3 or so. I don't even know.
You came close. I have to go back, but
yeah, I didn't want to be. It's just super close. I didn't want to be.
So if Jones played in that game, maybe they scored another touchdown. But who again? What difference does it make at that point? So,
and it's funny too. Not to delve off what you're saying, but just back real quick on something else we were talking about. We talked about the defense has not been playing that well, right? If you take the other 3 teams in the NFC East and you lump them together and then average out the average points they give up per game, the other teams in the division are giving up 23.38 points per game. We're giving up 22.9. So we're actually giving up less than the average of the other 3 teams, even when I just took their games, not when I lump us all together, everybody in the NFC East, the average comes out to 23.27. But if you just do the other 3 teams, it's 23.38. We're scoring 14.8 points per game. You can't win.
No.
You cannot win scoring as little as we are.
No.
And it's so bad. And I think that's the part, what I was saying is like, when you give a message that I'm not sure who you were giving the message for. Was it for the fans about Daniel, or was it the message you're giving back to ownership? This is the best we got. This is the best we got. It's weird because once you yank them, you've lost all credibility going forward because now it's clearly a money decision. That's all this is money. And you're not saying that. I would be if I was a player.
They can't. They might have been somewhat cornered because they legally can't say that. Because if they
but then
say
don't say the other shit. You know what I mean? Don't say he's your best chance of because then on top of it, you look like a moron that you were carrying the backup quarterback that you don't think is good enough to play.
Yeah. Well, the problem they have is they look like morons right now. Even if it's because they're doing something else. The motivations are another reason, and they can't really lay them out. They look bad, and that's what's bothering so many Giants fans right now. So they're being mocked by everybody, right or wrong. They're being mocked, and people don't like being mocked. Who does? No one likes being mocked, and they're being laughed at, and that's why I don't think they can survive this because they've literally, well, figuratively, become the clowns that my daughter made the thing for the last regime. So they become clowns that everybody's laughing at. And that's just embarrassing because people are like, what are the Giants? So when you got like clowns like Rex Ryan saying what he's saying on,
he
TV,
attacked him. Yep.
You've got I'm sorry. People might like him, but Baker Mayfield's making fun of a undrafted rookie free agent by, with this thing in the end zone. Yeah, well, way to go there, Baker. Way to show up the third stringer there. I mean, but they've opened themselves up to this shit because
we asked for it
the way that they're playing. So, and it's embarrassing, and people don't want to do it, and people are going to tune them out, and that's where we're at right now. So, to wrap this up from my perspective, I do want to shout out that Jerry in DC has a really good thread he started about an hour ago, I think, and he said, Don't be sad. This is the best thing that could happen. I had to open that up. I kind of thought I knew where he was going, and it is. He's basically saying it's gotten so bad that we now have clear-cut answers on what we needed to do. We needed to get rid of Daniel. We need to start over with the coach. We need to start over with the GM. There's no ambiguity here. This is the best thing that could happen because there's some clarity here. And in a way, or he is right, because the worst thing would have been if we were kind of in an in-between area and Mara goes, well, maybe we'll give him another year. Maybe we'll, and
Well, the only problem with all that theory is that's the assumption is that it's so bad they're going to do the
right,
common
that's
sense thing.
correct.
If they don't, that goes back to where you and I had talked before, where I've said that I got a weird feeling that they were told they were going to be there, which made sense of why they were doing stuff that just, you're looking at it going, I don't understand why you keep rolling it out there. It's not working. You know it's not working, but you keep doubling down on it as if you've been told, we know, just ride it out. But the locker room falling apart, though, I do think I think you're probably right no matter what on Daboll. I can't see any way that he survives because the biggest parts of what you're losing isn't like a Dexter Lawrence per se. You have a roster full of young guys. And one of the young guys is the main guy that we drafted to be a big time player. And he's spouting off.
Taking the draft.
Yeah, he's spouting off already. And he seems to have this weird connection with Daboll. Like Daboll's kind of built him up too much. Like the other day when we all of a sudden saw he wasn't practicing.
He's chatting with Daboll.
Yeah, Daboll's over there. They're laughing. And I'm like, but notice too, though, that Neighbors never really addressed. Like he doesn't look at him. He's not laughing back. I feel like Daboll's that guy who's trying to hope the guy will like him and stay and keep going. Anyway, that being said,
he's too chummy with him. He's too chummy with him.
He blows a gasket. Sorry, he blows a gasket at weird times, but not all the time. And I either want you to be fiery or I don't. The one thing about this team, they have no heart at all. When Mayfield did what you brought up,
yeah,
the next time he came on the field, I'd be like, I don't care. I'm going to take 15 yards, but you're going to pay for that.
Yeah,
they don't care. They don't give a shit. Like they were mad.
Remember when remember they did the illegal crackback block on LT. The Eagles did. Remember what they did to the quarterback?
Oh my God! Hell yeah!
So
hell yeah!
You make the guy pay for that crap. So, and I know it's a different era, but again, there's got to be some payback here. So, go back to DC. You had a good thought. Again, and John's right too. The worst case scenario here would be if it was like 1996 again. I don't know if you remember that, but everybody figured Dan Reeves was gone.
Lame duck.
They kept him another year, and it was like, and everyone, it was like you said, a lame duck, and it was like, what are we doing? So
what is Daboll's contract, by the way? Do you know? Like,
I don't know.
Is it 1 more year? Or is it 2 more years?
I don't know. I would. Don't they normally sign 4-year deals when they get?
So this would be his 3rd year. So he would be in the last year of his contract. So it's either he goes or they got to redo his contract. You're not going to keep him for 1 year if you're not sure. So if that's the case, if it was, then a decision has to be made on him. It's either an extension or he goes. You can't have a lame duck coach. We saw that.
He's gone. Unless barring a miracle, he's gone. The question is Shane. And again, I understand this, and I feel the same way. But I also don't want to go through this again because that's gonna. People don't understand this. We're starting all over again. It means and people are gonna say, "Well, that's no longer true anymore." And I kind of understand that too. But again, we don't have a quarterback. We need an attitude adjustment. And I just don't see this turning around very quickly. It's going to be a while again. So I just would like to see it build this time and not start off great and then go downhill. I'd be okay with a 6-11 season next year if the following year they're 9-8 and they build from that. So that's where I'm at. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking a lot about draft picks, draft stuff, free agency coming up. We're going to have to find out if Daboll's even here after Thursday. We haven't even talked about the Cowboy game, but we're going to have to find out if they even survive this week. So happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Well, I know I got it all.
Dinner.
I've got it all. Like I have my birthday is Wednesday. Thanksgiving's the day after. So the Giants are going to give me a massively great present. They're going to shit the bed on national TV one more time. To San Fran, Giant fan in North Carolina, I think I'm saying that right. He caught some, kind of what I didn't say the other day.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's gonna be it sucks because I wanted so bad to be like this was the cleansing, right? Like last year was we got some players and I thought we're building. This is gonna be you and I in the summer and we're back, we're doing this stuff. And this is the worst thing I thought could possibly happen is that the wheels just completely came off. Like, I mean, it just off from the organization, off from on the field, off in general, just off. So
Worst team in the league right now. Don't you think
without question. I mean, if
we're
they
the
played
worst team in the
Jacksonville,
league?
Jacksonville would beat us.
Yeah, we're the worst team in the league. I didn't see this coming. I didn't think they would be this bad.
I mean, you would think if Jones was even Jones, 6-7 wins. You know,
Yeah.
just all he's got to do is not turn the ball over. 6-7 wins. It's just not nothing's happening, which means it's deeper. It's deeper than that. And I'm with some other folks. I the more you watch, the more I feel like Daboll's not a good head coach. I think I just don't think I don't think he puts his staff together in a way. He might rub some people the wrong way, but it's his in-game flow. I mean, if you thought Kafka wasn't calling the games well, Jesus. I mean,
Well, they
it's
are
even
what they
worse.
are. They are. He's got a team that isn't playing. He's got a 2-9 team that isn't playing hard and starting to quit on him. So how can you say he's a good coach at this point?
What do you see? So we didn't talk. We'll keep it real quick.
Yeah, we got to keep it quick because we're going.
Thursday
Yeah.
for Dallas.
Oh
Dallas
Christ! Dallas
just
was
beat
Dallas. I
Washington.
can't believe how Dallas beat the Commanders. I mean,
Well,
the
the
Commanders have
Commanders are
got to be
falling
killing
off.
themselves.
They're falling down.
Um, yeah, but I saw you say that, but I'd rather have the quarterback.
Oh no, I
They're way
agree.
ahead of schedule. They are
But that's what I'm
way
saying
ahead
is
of schedule.
they remind me of us in 22, except for they have a young quarterback. They started well. Their talent is getting caught up a little bit. They don't have a lot at wide receiver other than McLaurin. Their offensive line is average. Their defense is average.
Yeah.
So they're relying on, and they won one game on a freaking Hail Mary because the Bears are too stupid to even pay attention.
They did it. But they did it. I mean,
they did, of course.
Yeah.
But
right,
now it's starting to fall
we're
off.
gonna go off on tangent. But to answer your question, I don't see how this team beats anybody at this point because I think they've quit. So is Dallas beatable? God, yes, but I don't.
And by the way, did you think Tommy DeVito got a concussion early on? His head slammed off the turf. They kind of helped him to the sidelines, and he's actually still being looked at. And they asked Daboll, "Is he going to play?" And he's like, "Well, I expect him to play. Have you talked to the trainers yet?" No, I haven't talked to the trainers or the quarterback yet. We could find out tomorrow that Drew Lock is playing and Tim Boyle's the backup. DeVito's head bounced off.
He's not on the injury report that they put out today. I don't think they actually have. Check this out. Evan Neal's on the injury report is projected as not practicing. But let me just real quick before we get out of here because some people may not know about the injury report. So both our tackles are on the injury report as not practicing. Luminor and Neal, Ojulari and Armand Watts, the defensive tackle, didn't practice. And let me see if the quarterback's not on here.
Okay,
he's not even on. He's not even on here. So
that's good.
Yeah. I don't. They could beat Dallas, but they'd have to show up and show some pride, and I haven't seen the pride. That's why I think Daboll's gone. It's when the team, and this is what I talked about early about Mara's statement, because when your team starts quitting on you, it changes everything, and they've clearly started to quit. And again, much of this is tied to the defensive coordinator now.
Right.
And he picked the defensive coordinator. And he picked Wink, so that's why I think he's done. So that's my final word is on that.
I think Dallas is going to put up 35-40.
Oh God!
And I think some of it's going to be defensive. Micah Parsons is back, and he seemed to be really kind of turning things up. You know, Dallas, if they went on a minor run, could maybe even contend for a last playoff spot. That's how bad a lot of the other teams are below the upper echelon in the NFC, because you got 7 teams deep. I mean, they have something to play for. They just beat Washington, and they don't like us, and they haven't won a game at home yet. So they're going to want to win on Thanksgiving Day. They're going to want to beat us, and we're going to roll out our probably 4th, 5th iteration of our offensive line. It's not going to be good. It's going to be bad. So in some cases, this might be the best thing. This might be the best thing because I do believe that if that happens, I think the coach will be gone there's no point in carrying it through the rest of the season if you know you're going to walk away. The question with Shane, you can wait a little bit on Shane. You can wait till the end of the year if you want to, because what difference does it make if you fire the GM right now? The worst mistake that they did before is they fired a GM and hired a new one in the middle of a freaking season. You do not want to do that this time around.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to just let that sit. So anyway.
Happy 100th anniversary, New York Giants.
Oh, what a year, right?
What a year. What a tribute. So started off with the uniforms. Oh my God.
And that
What a
season,
nightmare.
the season has looked like those original uniforms. Yes, it
Uniforms.
has.
All right.
So, well, I appreciate it again. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We will be back again next week. We'll follow up with whatever happens on Thursday. Keep an eye out. I'm assuming Daniel Jones will sign with somebody here in the near future, so that'll be interesting too. But appreciate everybody, and we'll catch up with you again next week.